I've got the brand new Alpha 6700, and I've also got the new 70-200 f4 macro version 2. We're gonna pair these two products up for a studio photo shoot. I'm gonna talk you through the setup, the lighting. We're gonna see how this camera and lens combination performs for studio photography. Let's get right into this. I'm using ProPhoto lighting, so I have a ProPhoto remote. Many people have been asking me if these camera bodies work with off-camera flash. Happy to say it does work. Let's talk about our main light. So this main light right now is actually a ProPhoto D2, and that's what's gonna be our main light. I've got a 5-foot Octa. Well, actually it's an Octa large, so it might be a little bit smaller than 5 foot, but a nice big soft light, which for my portrait work, absolutely love it. One of my favorite modifiers to use. Here in front of us, we've got a silver reflector. You actually want the reflector to do something, but you need to get it out of the frame. So I changed the stand to one that's a little bit shorter. So just silver reflector, adding a little bit of fill. And then moving on to our backlight or our hair light, we've got another ProPhoto D2. I've got a 1x3 strip box. And all this is doing is when Katelyn is standing where the lighting looks best, this is just giving her a nice little edge light. It's adding a little bit of a highlight to her hair. And just overall, just kind of separating her a little bit from the background. So that's the two light setup. So it's basically two lights and a reflector. We'll talk about the settings here momentarily, but since we're on the subject of lights, there's something really important that I want to cover. A really common question that I get all the time when I do these lighting breakdown videos, people will ask, well, you said it's a two light setup, but I actually see a bunch of lights in the background, just like you see these orange tubes here in the background. So we've got two orange tubes, and then we have a large softbox with a grid. Believe it or not, these lights are not actually impacting the exposure of the photograph. They're literally on set so that you could see me, so you could see everything that's happening. This is just for the videographer who is doing an awesome job behind the camera, for him to be able to see us, okay? So these lights, even though you're seeing them in the background, they are not affecting the exposure whatsoever because of the settings that I'm using to take these photographs. So oftentimes when I'm shooting studio portraiture, it's like the most common settings that I'm gonna use, which is f8, 1/160th of a second for the shutter speed, and ISO 100. Usually with these settings, that's strong enough for you to underexpose any kind of light that's on the set. So we're just talking about the fact that we have these tube lights, we've got this other big softbox. These settings, before I turn on my flash, basically gives me like a black exposure, like there's nothing, it's just completely underexposed, which is where you wanna start. And then when you turn on your flashes, that's actually the only thing that is lighting our fantastic model, who you already know. We've got Katelyn here in the studio. She's gonna be modeling for us for this video. And so that's basically the settings that I'm using. So when you start off with those camera settings, you're basically taking your lighting and you're raising them up, and you're doing this little bit of a dance with the lights to basically get the main light to make Katelyn look good. Then we turn on the hair light or the backlight, dial that to taste to basically edge her out, give her a nice little highlight on the hair, and then adjust the reflector based on how you're composing and cropping your shot. You're gonna raise the reflector up and down to give you the shot and make it look just right. So that's our camera settings, and we're gonna go ahead and start shooting, and I'll share some images. We're actually gonna share out of camera JPEGs. So these are not retouched. This gives you an idea of exactly what the photos look like using this fantastic lens, this great camera body. I will mention this as well. When it comes to my settings on the 6700, I'm shooting in wide area autofocus. I have eye autofocus engaged, which does an amazing job of tracking Katelyn. This camera has AI capabilities. And so with that AI-based autofocus, I don't really have to worry about making sure Katelyn's in focus. She can move, she can pose, she can do her thing. And this camera is advanced enough that it just tracks her throughout the entirety of that motion. Now, that wouldn't work so well if the lens didn't have the motors and the technology to basically keep up with the body. So that 70-200 lens, brand new, has linear motors. It does an amazing job with tracking. It can keep up with the camera body and all its instructions throughout this process. So with that being said, let's start shooting and I'll show you some of the results. Listen, if you have any questions about the camera, the lens, the lighting, the setup, anything, leave it in the comment section below. I always read the comments. I try to respond back as much as I can. Make sure you're subscribed because we got new videos coming out all the time, including some more videos that I'm going to be shooting here with Katelyn after this video is done. But speaking of after this video is done, got this amazing video here on the channel. It's actually an entire playlist of great tutorials that will help you to improve your photography. So be sure to check it out, and I'll see you next time.